Hey guys, and welcome to another brand new video. In this video, we actually have some pretty big and interesting news to go cover over here, where we're actually going to talk about the fact that PlayStation and Sony themselves has quite a bit of money to go and talk about, spend into, and as well invest into maybe buying out some really big acquisitions, and as well investing all their money into, well, hopefully some pretty cool games. We're going to talk about what we might be on the lookout for, what things may be possible, what type of mergers might happen, and as well, we will probably have to go and see some sort of competition, especially if this Activision deal does go through, or as well maybe even more involvements in homegrown companies too, which we've covered up and talked about a lot on our channel itself. So a lot of interesting things to go talk about, so make sure you guys are stay tuned, relax, and enjoy, and as well, make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch stream down below, we have the Target links down below, the Amazon links down below for all the nice little consoles. Leave a like and your thoughts, and let's dive into the video. So as you guys know, there's been a lot of acquisition talk when it comes to Xbox, but not so much, funny enough, when it comes to, well, PlayStation. And PlayStation actually is a big company. It does have Sony behind them too as well, which is not as big as Microsoft, don't get us wrong, but Sony does churn out some good money when it comes to their movies and music and also PlayStation games and everything in between. So right now we do know that Sony has around another $5.1 billion left to spend on acquisitions now until the end of 2024. So they actually have this money already allocated for, move towards, and everything else with it, where they just want to go and maybe drop some big dollar rooskies on some big games or game companies and everything in between. So according to reports, Sony as of now still has around $5 billion to spend on acquisitions for the next year. In the current year, Sony still has around $5 billion to spend on acquisitions, so in 2024, we can expect more announcements regarding new PlayStation studios. However, it is a fair point to point out that the acquisitions are not at all necessarily linked to the world of video games, which is intriguing too, because once again, they could be buying, games and studios and all of that, but they could also spend money on pretty much anything. If they want to buy maybe a movie IP or music IP, they could always go do that too as well. So the figure emerged from a Morgan Stanley conference last month in which Hiroki Totsuki, Sony's CFO, returned to talk about the company's 2 trillion yen earmarked for acquisitions about 3 years ago and spread over 3 years too as well. Totoki revealed that by the end of 2022, 1.3 trillion has been spent, and that leaves around 0.07 trillion yen, which is about $5.1 billion, with the weird currencies, led for additional acquisitions to spend in the current year. As explained, that remaining money will not only be used for the acquisitions of PlayStation, but for the entire actual Sony group. So while this will be I think if you guys know, PlayStation is pretty high up there, I would say, in terms of their money, in terms of their development, in terms of everything in between, which I think is good. They make good money. They know how to churn this stuff. But one of I think the bigger issues is, well, it could be anything. Like I said, it could be music, it could be movies, it could be literally anything. TVs, TV investments, game controllers, whatever. PlayStation's a very high revenue source when it comes to Sony. They make a lot of money. So they're probably going to want to focus on games, because the more games, more counteractive towards probably their biggest competitors, such as, well, Microsoft. But of course, as well, $5 billion can kind of go a long way when it comes to a lot of these different types of companies. So basically, this is news that denies another rumor, which they have now reported, though, because it's actually reliable, which we've actually been hearing a lot of big news, where that Sony almost wants to require Take-Two to respond to the acquisition of Activision Blizzard by Microsoft. Although once again, that's not 1,000% confirmed, but that does leave open a lot more potential either mergers or just basically buyouts. And it kind of depends on the company. Some companies are actually probably more inclined to even maybe sell on a discount, or as well have a stock merge too as well, where it's we'll give you $5 billion liquid cash and then $5 billion in say Sony stock, because you're technically being a part of our company, we're trying to get you a good deal, try to give it out to all the employees for the buyouts, so that they actually get a value, because obviously a lot of Sony stock is always good. And then among the latest Sony acquisitions, there could be a Ballistic Moon studio. However, it's still very small reality and without published projects, despite having been founded by veterans from Supermassive Games. So let's go do a little bit more of this deep dive into this acquisition talk. So as I mentioned, there's a lot of money. They literally bought Blizzard. Oh, not Blizzard. I wish they did. They literally went and bought Destiny. So they bought, Bungie. And that was a few $1 billion. But it kind of goes to show that some game companies are, number one, very valuable, and number two, can actually be bought. So a good example for that, for, say, Destiny and Bungie, is that they have the Destiny IP, so they're going to have the expansions. They're going to also probably going to have say Destiny 3. But with that game company from Bungie, they're going to have a lot more IPs coming. You can't only keep on playing, Destiny forever. They want to have and already have confirmed 5 other games on their list. So they'll be working on that too on top of that. So That's a big thing to know. But we've actually looked through some of the other bigger stock. Now, I've always thought like a cool combination would say EA would be very intriguing, but when it comes to EA itself, right now it's technically a $30 billion company. So, I mean, in theory, there is a chance for them to want to go and buy EA, and that'd be a lot of sports games and other various games and big IPs that they own. But as of this point, probably not. But there's a few other ones too, and I always, for some odd reason, I don't know why, like I've had this, and if this ever happens, I'm going to quote this same video. I keep on seeing like Ubisoft. I don't know why, but Ubisoft's been going through everything. They've been having big struggles. They've had issues. And right now, their current market cap's around 2.76 billion euros right now. And it's also been doing kind of like rough. If you actually go look at, like, say, the 1 year chart or 6-month chart, it's only been down over 37%. Now, the general market itself has also been kind of mediocre, don't get me wrong, but it does kind of go and show that, well, gaming as a whole, maybe even for them, has not been doing so good, 47%. So if Sony want to try to get a good deal, especially off this like nice little bull market as we go into a bear market, they probably could get some pretty good price points. But there's also other things that they already have proper connections with. A good example is maybe like Konami, where you may not necessarily even need to go buy the Konami itself, like the actual overall company, but maybe for a gaming division, you could go and drop a few $100 million and buy the rights and IPs of those companies. I mean, granted, they're kind of more of a little bit Sony leaning as of right this second, but also things like Square Enix. Square Enix would also probably be a really, really good company too, as well to be on the lookout for. Because as you guys can see, it's only 700 billion Japanese yen, which is still like that's a good amount of company, obviously, but it's not unaffordable. Like, they actually do maybe have the money for it. I keep on thinking Ubisoft makes sense, but there's also other companies, even things like Capcom too as well, where these are all pretty established companies. They have 1.17 trillion like Japanese yen for their company value. And it's actually been doing kind of okay. Like the past like year or so, it's actually been up a little bit too, because they've actually had some pretty good sales. But it just kind of goes to show that there is a lot of big options. We also had the same issue too with the actual ownership group of Elden Ring as well. So it does kind of go to show that Sony, it could be another big deal. And I do think with the Activision acquisition pretty much looming, where if that does go through, and that's like a $70 billion market, like that's a lot. That's a lot of actual money. Guess what? Sony can't compete with that. But $5 billion, that's not that bad. Like, it's not Call of Duty levels, but that might be some like Final Fantasy levels, which I think a lot of folks would probably appreciate based on the PlayStation player base, or things like I said for a Capcom. That could be like a good Resident Evil. Could be very good, or like a Konami, think like the Silent Hills, which could be really good, or Ubisoft as well, like a game like, say, an Assassin's Creed, and a lot of other Ubisoft-based games. And I do think, honest to God, this is kind of just my own like little rambling over here, a company like Ubisoft almost needs like a daddy group. Like Ubisoft itself, they have a lot of really cool games and IPs. So think things like The Division, Rainbow Six, Assassin's Creed, a lot of pirate type style games, new Avatar games. Like, they own these IPs and they have these workarounds with it, and I think it's nice. But right now, I think for a lot of other games, like, they're kind of outdated. They had a lot of bad PR when it comes to microtransactions and everything else, where I do think a game like, say, Assassin's Creed, if it was pushed by a proper PlayStation like QA, and you have like Jim Ryan and these big executives coming in and saying, hey, no, this is awful. Like, the next one you're making is going to be great. We're going to watch the entire step. We're going to go make sure it's good. We're going to have a new engine? Yes, we're making a new engine. Oh, we're going to go and have a brand new storyline, no microtransactions. We're going to subsidize it. And guess what? Think about how cool Ubisoft would be with Sony. And as well, that also maybe be nice things for PS Plus, maybe things for PS Premium too as well. And I don't know, it makes just a lot of sense in my head. So it's kind of cool to see that Sony does have a lot of other potential, because they are also one of the biggest gaming companies in the world. Like, even looking through some of the rankings over here, it is technically top 1, depending on how you look at it too, where they had like $28 billion in gaming revenue versus like, say, Microsoft. So don't forget, Microsoft overall is a bigger company, but when it comes to Microsoft as say for Xbox, it wasn't as big. It wasn't as big as PlayStation, how it was. And then same thing with like Tencent. Like, Tencent's too big for them to go and buy. Same with, you can't have Nintendo work, Activision, Blizzard too as well. And you guys can even see like some of these are probably a little bit too big, I would say, for that. But that's why people are even assuming for Take-Two, because Take-Two, although it does and make and print a lot of different types of games, such as like Grand Theft Auto, Red Dead Redemption, the 2K series, this would probably be one of the most, I think, profitable ones where people would probably have a big splash. And then, in all honesty, Grand Theft Auto could probably compete with Call of Duty. It's almost like, it's different enough, but it's same enough. I can kind of maybe go and see it. And obviously, there's things like Bandai and there's Ubisoft as well. For some odd reason, I keep on thinking Ubisoft's one of the bit more closer things. So of all these game companies, let me know in the comment section down below which one you guys like. And as well, make sure you guys are subscribed with the notifications on. We have the Twitter and Twitch stream down below if you guys want to follow. We have the comment section down below if you want to talk about the stuff. We have the Target links down below. We have the Amazon links down below. And of course, I appreciate you guys always so much for watching here in the first place.